Emily sat rigidly at the long oak table, her fingers knotted together in her lap. The attorney's office carried the faint aroma of worn pages and polished leather. Sunlight poured in through the tall windows, yet to her, it felt icy and harsh, more like a spotlight than warmth. At the head of the table, her father, Richard, sat with his silver hair neatly groomed, his suit immaculate, and his expression unreadable. Beside him, Vanessa, her stepmother, wore a faint, triumphant smile. Across from them, Michael, her half-brother, leaned back in his chair, idly tapping his pen against the wood as though counting down the seconds until his win was declared. Emily's pulse quickened as the lawyer began reading the will. She wasn't here for wealth. She wasn't covetous. She only wanted to hear her father speak her name with pride, to know she still meant something to him. She had worked tirelessly as a nurse, never once asking him for financial help. Yet, at the end of the day, he was still her father. Then came the words that destroyed her world. "I owe you nothing," Richard declared, his tone sharp and final. He didn't even look at her. "You are not my daughter." For a heartbeat, Emily thought she'd misheard. The room seemed to tilt, a ringing filling her ears. "What?" she managed, her voice faint and trembling. Richard's eyes stayed cold. "You heard me." Vanessa's smirk deepened. Michael chuckled under his breath, as though he'd just won a bet. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably, but kept reading at Richard's command. The will was brief. Everything passed to Vanessa and Michael. Emily's name wasn't mentioned once. Heat surged to her cheeks as every gaze turned her way, some pitying, others judgmental. She wanted to vanish, sink into the floor, yet she sat frozen. "Dad," she whispered, clinging desperately to hope. "How can you say that? How can you deny me?" Richard didn't flinch. "Because it's the truth." Her throat tightened painfully, the air around her pressing heavy. Vanessa looked delighted, Michael smug. Emily wanted to scream, to shatter the cruel silence, but no words came. At last, she pushed to her feet, her chair scraping sharply against the polished floor. "I don't believe you," she said, her voice shaky yet louder. "You're lying." Richard said nothing. He simply turned away, as if she were a stranger who had wandered in by mistake. Emily stumbled out, her legs weak, her chest burning. She hadn't even reached the elevator before tears blurred her vision. Hot, relentless, overwhelming. In a single sentence, her father had erased her existence. And still, one question blazed through the anguish. Why? Why would a father so cruelly cast aside his own child? Emily had been raised by Richard after her mother died, when she was only 6. He had once been her protector, the anchor of her small world. In those early years, he was warm and attentive, holding her hand through nightmares, applauding at school plays, whispering that she would always be his little girl. But everything changed when she was 10. That was the year Richard remarried. Vanessa entered their lives, elegant, sharp-tongued, always dressed as though she were headed to an important meeting. At first, Emily had tried to embrace her, even calling her mom once in a moment of longing. Vanessa had laughed coldly. "Don't call me that. I'm not your mother." Soon after, Michael was born. The house, once filled with Richard's laughter, grew silent except for Vanessa's constant complaints or Michael's cries. Emily, once the center of her father's universe, found herself pushed to the margins of her own home. Vanessa never raised her voice, yet her cutting remarks shrank Emily's confidence. "Is that really what you're wearing to dinner?" she'd say with a cool smile. "You'll never measure up to your mother," she had grace. Richard never defended her. At first he pretended not to hear. Later he joined in, correcting Emily harshly, comparing her unfavorably to Michael, until she always felt second best. The little girl who once ran to him with scraped knees and happy stories learned to bury her feelings. By her teenage years, she no longer expected affection under that roof. She spent more time in libraries or with friends, escaping the coldness at home. After high school, she left for nursing school and never looked back. Now at 27, Emily lived alone in a modest apartment across town. She worked long hours at the hospital, caring for patients with steady hands and a kind heart. She was proud of her independence, paying her own bills, building her own life, never needing her father or Vanessa's help. And yet, no matter how strong she became, part of her still yearned for Richard's approval. for the father who once adored her. She kept photos of her late mother by her bed, often wondering, if her mother had lived longer, would Richard have stayed gentle? Would Vanessa have ever come into their lives? Would Emily have grown up feeling like she truly belonged? The ache of being an outsider never fully faded. Every holiday visit to her father's house felt like entering enemy ground. Vanessa's sly remarks, Michael's smug glances, and Richard's cold silence left Emily feeling like a guest among strangers. Yet she still returned: birthdays, holidays, the occasional Sunday dinner. She kept showing up, hoping for even the smallest sign of affection from her father. She longed for him to say, "I'm proud of you." She wanted to know she mattered. That's why the reading of the will had been so important. It wasn't about inheritance. She had her own career, her own stability. It was about acknowledgement. To be included meant she was still his daughter, still family, despite whatever venom Vanessa whispered behind closed doors. Deep down, Emily clung to the belief that Richard still loved her, even if he hid it. She told herself the distance was stress, or perhaps Vanessa's influence. Never had she imagined true rejection. Yet as she sat in that office, waiting to hear her name, unease twisted in her stomach. She told herself it was foolish, that the reading was just a formality. What she didn't know was that everything she believed, about her father, her family, even her very identity, was about to shatter. Emily sought love, recognition, and belonging, not a share of property. She wanted the man who once called her "my little girl." She wanted her mother's memory honored. But what she heard instead threatened all of that, forcing her to question who she really was. Rewrite my story video title 2 and make suspenseful and about 80 characters, and also need alternative words using synonyms that not match the current sentence, and also don't exist on YouTube. According to my story, make the title 2 and make suspenseful and about 80 characters. Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. You think Mom was unfaithful to you? That's absurd. She loved you more than anything. She loved someone, Richard replied bitterly. But it wasn't me. I should have realized it long ago. You're nothing like me. Emily's breath hitched, her chest tight. So that's why you've kept me at arm's length? Because you believe I'm not really yours? Richard gave no reply. His eyes drifted away, as though the sight of her pained him. Emily stepped forward, desperate. Who told you this? Vanessa? Michael? Do you honestly believe they care about you? All they want is what they can take. Richard's jaw tightened. Leave Emily. I don't want to hear another word. Her whole body trembled with rage and grief. No, she cried, her voice rising. I'm not leaving until you explain why you believe this lie. Richard slammed his hand on the desk, making her flinch. Enough. Your mother betrayed me, and you're the proof of it. For a long, suffocating silence, only Emily's ragged breaths filled the room. Finally, Richard turned away, dismissing her like she was nothing. Emily's heart shattered again. But beneath the pain, something fierce began to burn. Her voice was low but steady. Mom never betrayed you. And I'll prove it. I don't care what Vanessa told you, or what lies you've chosen to believe. I know who I am, and I know who she was. Richard didn't answer. He just stared at the wall, as if she were already gone. Emily turned and walked out, her legs unsteady, but her chin held high. By the time she reached her car, her tears were gone. Shock had hardened into determination. If her father wanted to erase her, she wouldn't let him. If Vanessa thought she had one, she was wrong. Emily would dig into the past, old letters, family memories, friends, anything that could reveal the truth. She would clear her mother's name no matter what it cost. She started her car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. You're wrong about me, Dad, she whispered. And I'll prove it. The fight for her identity, and for her mother's honor, had only begun. Emily began seeking out her mother's friends, her letters, any clue about what truly happened years ago. On her days off from the hospital, she hunted for small fragments of truth, dusty photo albums, faded envelopes tucked away in drawers, names of people who once knew her mother well. Her first visit was to Mrs. Green, her mother's childhood friend. The older woman welcomed her warmly, but stiffened when she heard why Emily had come. Your mother adored your father, Mrs. Green said firmly. She was proud of him. I never heard a whisper about another man. Then why does Dad think I'm not his? Emily asked, voice shaking. Mrs. Green shook her head. Someone has poisoned his mind. Everywhere Emily went, she heard the same story. Her mother had been devoted, gentle, and in love with Richard. But Richard's heart remained closed. He ignored Emily's calls. The gates stayed locked when she came to the house. Vanessa made sure things grew worse. Gossip spread quickly. Emily was greedy, unstable, stirring trouble for money. Aunts who once embraced her now avoided her. Friends canceled plans. Even at the hospital, she felt whispers trailing her. Michael fueled it, telling anyone who would listen that she was bitter about losing her inheritance. The more isolated Emily became, the tighter she clung to the truth. Digging through her mother's belongings one evening, she discovered a bundle of letters tied with ribbon. Love notes her mother had written to Richard early in their marriage. They overflowed with devotion and hope for their family. Emily wept as she read them. How could Dad believe she betrayed him, she whispered. Then she stumbled on something more unsettling. Medical papers slipped between the letters. They were old but clear. Blood test results, hospital notes, and a half-completed DNA test form signed by Richard. He had questioned her paternity years ago, but never followed through. Emily's chest tightened. Had he doubted her even back then? Or had Vanessa planted suspicion long ago? Seeking answers, she met Mr. Adams, an old colleague of her father. Over coffee, his expression darkened. Vanessa never liked you, Emily. I've seen her whisper poison into Richard's ear for years. Little by little, she turned him against you. It's not money she wants, it's power. She wants everything to go to Michael. So she lied to him? Emily asked. Wouldn't surprise me, Mr. Adams said grimly. But Richard let her. He chose to believe her. Those words cut deeper than Emily expected. Vanessa might have manipulated him, but Richard hadn't defended his own daughter. He hadn't even asked for proof before casting her aside. Weeks slipped by. Emily worked her shifts, but every free moment was spent chasing leads, calling distant relatives, tracking down people who had worked for her parents, piecing the story together. The picture became clearer. Vanessa had been sowing doubt for years, slowly convincing Richard that Emily wasn't his. The weight of it nearly broke her. One night, after another ignored call, Emily sat in her apartment, shaking. Why am I even fighting? She whispered. He doesn't want me. Maybe it doesn't matter whose blood I carry. But then her gaze fell on her mother's letters, the gentle handwriting filled with love. No, she couldn't stop. This wasn't just about her. It was about protecting her mother from a vicious lie. As Emily dug deeper, danger grew. Vanessa began appearing at the hospital, pretending concern but spreading rumors among coworkers. Michael smeared her online, calling her a fraud. Richard refused every attempt at contact. Emily felt trapped, but she pushed forward. Late one night, she noticed something she'd missed before. Among the old papers was a more recent document, too new to have been her mother's. It was her birth record, alongside Richard's old DNA request. But again, no results. Why had it never been completed? Had Vanessa interfered even then? Emily's anger hardened into resolve. If Richard had once doubted, then she would settle it herself, with proof, not whispers. A real DNA test, now without interference. But getting him to agree would be nearly impossible. He ignored her calls. He wouldn't open his door. Vanessa shadowed him constantly, twisting every word. Still, Emily refused to stop. This wasn't about inheritance. It was about truth. About her mother's honor. About who Emily really was. Clutching the medical records and her mother's letters to her chest, she whispered, I'm not walking away. Not now. Not ever. The battle was far from over, and Emily was ready. At last, she confronted Richard again, a folder of evidence in her hands. Inside were her mother's love letters, the medical papers, and the unfinished DNA test he had once signed. Her hands shook, but her voice did not. You're wrong about Mom, Emily said, placing the folder on his desk. She never betrayed you. You've been deceived. Richard's expression hardened. I told you to leave this alone. I can't, Emily answered, her eyes blazing. Do you even recognize her handwriting? These letters are filled with love for you. And this, she lifted the test request. You doubted me once, didn't you? But you never finished it. Why? Because Vanessa stopped you. Richard tensed at her name, but stayed silent. Emily stepped closer. I don't care about your money. I don't care about the will. I care about Mom's name and mine. If you have even a shred of decency left, you'll take a DNA test with me right now. No more lies. For a long moment, Richard said nothing, his jaw rigid, eyes averted. You're wasting your time, he muttered. Are you afraid of the truth? Emily asked softly. Because I'm not. Something in her tone pierced his pride. Finally, Richard let out a long, heavy breath. Fine. You want a test? You'll have it. But when it proves I'm right, don't ever come back. Emily swallowed hard and nodded. And if it proves you're wrong? Richard didn't answer. The test was done quietly at a private clinic. Days dragged on like years, neither speaking. Emily worked her hospital shifts, but her thoughts never left that moment. Every word, every cold glance from her father replaying in her mind. Vanessa continues to whisper her rumors, smug and certain that Richard's side of the story will be proven right. Michael even laughs openly, calling it the moment the charity case finally gets exposed. Then the phone rings. The results are in. They gather at the clinic office. The doctor carefully opens the envelope and, with practiced calm, reads aloud. The DNA confirms a 99.99% match. Emily is, without question, Richard Hale's biological daughter. Emily's heart soars. She always knew it. But Richard goes pale, staring at the paper as if it's written in another language. That can't be, he mutters. It is, Dad. Emily replies, her voice trembling. I've been your daughter all along. Richard sinks heavily into a chair, his face drained of color. For the first time he looks uncertain, almost afraid. But Vanessa, he stammers, she showed me. What did she show you? Emily presses, her voice sharp. Slowly, painfully, the truth unravels. Years earlier, Vanessa had come to Richard with fabricated evidence. Fake letters, twisted stories about Emily's mother, even a forged document suggesting another man. She spun her lies again and again until Richard believed her. She persuaded him to stop the original DNA test, warning it would only humiliate the family. She lied to you because she wanted everything for Michael. Emily says, her voice raw. And you let her. Richard's hands tremble as he really looks at Emily, truly looks at her, for the first time in years. Emily, my God, what have I done? The anger Emily has held back for so long finally bursts out. You chose her over me. You believed her lies about Mom. You threw me away without even asking for proof. Tears run down her face, but she doesn't flinch. Do you have any idea what it's like to hear your own father say you're not his child? In front of everyone? Richard covers his face with shaking hands. I was wrong. I was blind. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it, Emily snaps. But you can stop lying to yourself. Mom was faithful. I'm your daughter. Vanessa has been poisoning you for years. Suddenly, the door bursts open. Vanessa storms in, Michael right behind her, having overheard everything. Richard, don't listen to her. Enough, Richard roars, slamming his hand down on the table. His voice shakes with fury and shame. I've heard enough of your lies. You destroyed my family and I let you. Vanessa's face twists in shock, but Richard has already grabbed the DNA results, holding them up like a weapon. Emily is my daughter, my only daughter, and you will never steal another thing from me. Michael tries to speak, but Richard silences him with a glare so cold it forces him back a step. Get out, Richard growls. Both of you. Out of my house. Out of my life. Stunned, Vanessa and Michael leave, their arrogance finally stripped away. When the room is quiet again, Richard turns to Emily, his eyes heavy with regret. I don't deserve your forgiveness, he whispers. But please, please don't hate me. I thought I was protecting myself. I didn't see what she was doing. Emily wipes her tears, her voice steady. You didn't protect yourself, you destroyed us. You believed lies about the woman who loved you most. And you crushed your own daughter. Richard bows his head, speechless. Emily gathers the DNA results and holds them close to her chest. This isn't about money, Dad. It's about truth. I am your daughter. I always was. But whether I can ever be your family again, that's something you'll have to earn. She turns and walks away, leaving Richard pale, shaking, and finally facing the weight of what he's done. Richard soon removes Vanessa and Michael from his will, restoring Emily as his rightful heir. The lawyers finalize the paperwork quickly, and news spreads through the family. At last, no one questions Emily's identity. The truth is undeniable. But for Emily, it was never about inheritance. It was about the years of hurt, the lies told about her mother, and the way her father cast her aside. Richard calls again and again. When Emily finally agrees to meet, he looks older, frilier, his proud frame slumped beneath the burden of guilt. "I've fixed everything," he says softly. "Vanessa and Michael are gone. You're my only heir. I was blind and I'm sorry. Please forgive me." Emily studies him across the table. "You think this is about a will?" she asks gently. Richard falters. "You threw me away," Emily continues, her voice calm but cutting. "You didn't even ask for proof. You believed a lie over me. Over Mom. And now you expect things to go back to the way they were." "I was wrong," Richard whispers. "I see that now. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Emily shakes her head. "You can't buy my love with papers and promises. I'm glad you finally told the truth, but I won't pretend nothing happened." His eyes well with tears. "I don't know how to fix this." "Maybe you can't," Emily replies, her tone steady, not cruel. "But I can fix myself. I'm done chasing your approval. I'm done begging to be seen. I know who I am now. I don't need anyone to tell me I'm enough." The words fall heavy, final, like a door closing. Richard lowers his head, ashamed. Emily steadies herself. "I don't hate you, Dad," she says quietly. "But I can't forget. Love isn't supposed to vanish because someone whispers a lie. You'll have to live with that. I'm choosing peace over pain." Richard reaches for her hand, but Emily steps back. "Take care of yourself," she says, then walks away. From that day on, Emily stops waiting for her father's approval. She pours her heart into her work as a nurse, into saving lives and building her own future. Her worth is no longer measured by Richard or anyone else. With part of her inheritance, Emily starts a scholarship for young nurses. "This isn't my father's gift," she tells a friend. "It's a tool. I'm building something of my own." As time passes, the sting of betrayal begins to fade. She still misses the father who once held her hand as a child, but she accepts that man is gone. The one who remains will have to earn a place in her life, if he ever can. Richard begs for forgiveness again and again, but Emily never lets him believe love can be switched on and off like a light. She won't let guilt control her or wealth define her. In the end, Emily learns the greatest truth of all. She does not need anyone's approval to be whole. Not even her father's. She is enough. She always was. One quiet afternoon, Emily visits her mother's grave. The cemetery is still, the air filled only with birdsong and the whisper of wind. Kneeling by the stone, she holds two things, the DNA results and a handwritten note. "Hi, Mom," she whispers softly. "It's been a while." She lays the envelope gently on the grass. "They tried to erase us," she says, tracing her mother's name with her fingertips. But the truth remains. For a long moment, she sits in silence, letting herself feel the anger, the grief, the years of doubt. But something inside her is lighter now. The burden she carried for so long has finally lifted. She unfolds the letter and reads it aloud. Just a few short lines. "I know who you were. I know who I am. No lie can change that. I love you, and I'll always protect your name." Emily sets the letter beside the test results, smoothing the paper so it won't blow away. "They can't hurt us anymore," she whispers. "Not Dad. Not Vanessa. No one." A single tear slips down her cheek, but it isn't pain this time. It feels like release, like closing a door that should have shut years ago. She rises, giving the grave one last look. "I'm done fighting for people who refuse to see me," she says softly. "I'm going to live now for me and for you." As she walks back to her car, the clouds part and sunlight spills across her face. She is no longer broken. No longer the girl begging for her father's love. She is stronger, wiser, free. By the time she reaches the gate, she knows exactly who she is. Not because Richard finally admitted the truth, but because she found it herself. Emily leaves the past behind with every step, carrying only her mother's love in her heart. The lies, the betrayal, the desperate need for approval. All of it fades away. She doesn't look back. Thanks for staying with me until the end. The narrator closes. You're the true MVPs. Don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you never miss another story. See you next time.